Hey Gear Seekers, I'm Nick. Aren't you lucky that we are out here today at MSI HQ in Taipei for Computex Taipei 2025, checking out some interesting new tidbits they've got. But before that, here's a little message from our friends over at MSI because they sponsored the trip. Roll the intro and the ad and all that stuff.
Our Computex Taipei 2025 coverage is proudly brought to you by MSI and their GeForce RTX 50 series desktop graphics cards. MSI's GeForce RTX 50 series cards don't just look amazing, they perform like beasts. Powered by Blackwell with GDDR7 memory, they're built to crush games, AI tasks, and content creation. Stormforce fans keep things cool and quiet, while models like the Supreme Liquid push cooling to the next level. And with MSI Sensor and Afterburner, you've got full control. MSI GeForce RTX 50 series, designed to perform, styled to impress. To find out more about MSI and their GeForce RTX 50 series desktop graphics cards, check out the links in the video description.
Last year, MSI sent us over to China to check out some of the new developments in motherboard development and the whole manufacturing process. And you guys can check that video out down below in the description. But there's one thing that I didn't touch on when we were there, which is this new kind of technique to soldering things on boards. It is called PIP, or pin in paste. And what this means is instead of you having the stabbies on the back side of your motherboard, there is a new term coined by Steve from Hardware Unboxed called the anti-stabby technology, where when they solder in all of the surface mount components, it's now flat and there's no more stabbies, as opposed to all of the stabbies on all your other motherboards. And why this is relevant is, I gotta be honest with you guys, the amount of times I've stabbed myself installing motherboards into cases has been ridiculous. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I stabbed myself under the nail and it's still sore. Even though at the time of filming this, the show hasn't started yet, there is a few little things that we're starting to see pop up as a bit of a trend already, and that is more liquid coolers with screens. MSI's got two, but only one that they're releasing for now. This is the all-new MPG Core Liquid P13360. It does a few things slightly differently. They've decided to route the cables inside the tubes on this liquid cooler. So instead of you having that ugly PWM cable plugged into your motherboard to power the pump, the cables run out through the tubes. So no longer do you have to have a million cables hanging on the surface of your motherboard. Everything comes out in one place. But here's the thing that I find interesting that we're seeing, and Lian Li did this with the 207 Digital. All of the screens that we're seeing this year so far will allow you to use it as an expansion to your desktop. Even this tiny little 480 by 480 display can be used as another display for your operating system. How cool is that? This one, $189 US, and should be launching sometime in Q3, but there is a concept that they want a bit of our feedback for. This is the Core Liquid E13360. Following on from the screen trend that I've been talking about, you may have seen our Fantex video already. This also has a similar screen, but done slightly differently. MSI, do they make mobile phones? Do they make that, Claire? I'm not sure. This is the screen for their new cooler, but what's interesting about this is they're using a pogo pin setup, which will allow you to rotate the screen in any orientation that you like. Well, at least in 90-degree increments, considering we can see where the magnets are, and it will allow you to also use this as an expansion to your desktop. So, I mean, if for some reason that's something you wanted to do, you could do it. Now, as far as availability for this, we're not sure yet, but there's also some feedback that a few of us have had about the tube runs. I'm not sure if they're long enough yet, but stay tuned, and yeah, maybe there'll be some additional development with this product. But I think the E13 is looking pretty darn cool. And that's not just because they sponsored our Computex coverage. It genuinely does look freaking cool. It just looks like a phone. At CES 2025, we saw a version of this case right here. This is the Maestro 900L. What makes this different is this one doesn't have that dual motherboard layout. This has got a single eATX motherboard. But what's interesting about it is the internals of the case can be rotated. So let's say, for instance, you didn't want to have this standard layout. You can rotate the motherboard so the I/O either faces up or faces down. You've got triple 160mm fans that can be installed in both the bottom and the top. And if you're doing some testing, you can pull the internals out and use the inside of it as an open air test bench. Very, very quirky case design, but overall I think for me, like, it's not a case that I would use. I can see the appeal of it, but what's gonna surprise you, although quite high, it's only $599 US. It doesn't sound cheap, but for what this case does and the premium materials used to build it, not that crazy. I mean, if you've got $599 to spend on a case, guys, I don't think you're really worried about the actual price of this thing, but it does look cool. You got to agree with that. It looks freaking cool. MSI OGs will remember the M-Power series. This is the B850M M-Power. This is a board that I kind of willed into existence in my head. Obviously, I had no input into this, but this board is a board that is built to compete with the Apex boards from ASUS. It's got only 2 DIMM slots, which means it's designed for high frequency memory overclocking, and it's got one of the coolest features that we saw on a board that we covered earlier this year from MSI, an M.2 slot on the back. This board has 4 M.2 slots in total for an MATX board. And if you're wondering what this is called the Easy Dashboard. This will allow you to stand on the other side of your room and clear the CMOS, or turn on your PC, or monitor things when you're overclocking. It's got a little screen on it with a debug LED screen. Look at that. And this board will also be available sometime in Q3. These boards feature things like a 12+2+1 phase VRM, 5 gigabit Ethernet, which we're seeing as standard. And because MSI didn't want to be boring and have another black MATX motherboard, to make it a special M-Power version, we've got these yellow stripes. I kind of like it. I also like the different MSI logo on here. It's also got other handy features like another M.2 slot on the side next to where the other DIMM slots would be. And my favorite thing on motherboards these days is quick release heatsinks for M.2 slots. You may not think it's a big deal, but once you've used them, it's very hard to go back. And me being a X870E godlike user, yeah, this stuff is awesome. More motherboards, go check them out. Ones that you guys have been waiting for. Ready? You ready? I'm psyched to show you guys the next ones, because you've been waiting and they delivered. Here's the answer to the call. MSI ITX motherboards for AMD Ryzen 9000 CPUs. First of all, the one you guys have been asking about the most is the B850i Edge Ti Wi-Fi. Where has it been? It's right here, featuring an 8+2+1 phase VRM setup with 90 amp power stages, 5 gigabit Ethernet, all of the M.2 storage you'd ever need in an ITX board for $269 US, and this one will be available in Q3. I don't think there's much more to say about it. You guys already know the deal with this. You knew that it was coming. We got a bit of a taste of this board earlier in the month with the B860i Edge Ti Wi-Fi, which I'm finding out just now is also the same price as the B850 board, and also launches in Q3. So yeah, I was right, we did jump the gun on our video a little bit, but we've already covered this. I'll link to this in the description down below, but the one you've really been waiting for, it's this one right here, the MSI MPG X870i Edge Ti Wi-Fi. This is the top dog mini ITX motherboard for AM5 CPUs. This one right here, dual USB 4.0 quad M.2 slots with this little expansion card. To be honest, I'm not really here nor there with these expansion cards. I'm not a huge fan of them, but if it gives us something that we don't get usually, which is an extra M.2 slot. As far as the VRM layout, it shares the same physical layout, being an 8+2+1 phase VRM. However, this is a direct VRM with 110 amp power stages. So if you're overclocking or doing anything exotic with this board, it's almost, to me, like a full ATX board in an ITX form factor. 4 M.2 slots is Absolutely freaking ridiculous. But there's one last thing I want to show you. Not quite as exciting as this, but it's the new X870E Tomahawk Project Zero. This is the first Tomahawk board that's not black. This is a back connector motherboard for AM5, something that you guys have been waiting for, and it's not been abandoned, guys. MSI has been wanting to release a whole bunch of these back connector boards. They have more that they're going to be showing on the show floor, which we'll cover when we get to that video later on at Computex. But this one right here is something brand new, and I'm all about it. I told you guys we're going to see more of this stuff. No, it's not been abandoned. And this year at Computex, we're going to see a heck of a lot more back connector motherboards. And for those sleeping on MSI's ITX motherboards, they finally delivered exactly what you guys have asked for. And that's basically everything we've got to show you here today at MSI HQ here in Taipei. You know the deal. Special thanks to MSI for sending us to Computex Taipei 2025. Well, they didn't send us here. Technically, we got on the plane, we paid for everything, but they sponsored the trip. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. I'm going to say the thing, you pick, we seek, and we've got way more cool things to check out this year at Computex, guys. There's a lot. So make sure you subscribe, stay tuned, and all that jazz. And yeah, hopefully I won't need this anytime soon, because there's a lot of sleeping to be done when I get home. Lucky out.